Vincent, in 2011, you had a near-death experience on the occasion of a work accident. Can you tell us how this accident came about? Yes, I have a boarding stable for horses. And for my horses, I need my grassland and hay and things of that sort. I first wanted to mow the grass in order to remove weeds, and while mowing, a mosquito just flew into my eye and caused me to lose control over my tractor. And then I found myself driving too far down the slope because this was actually quite a steep slope. And while driving down, the tractor started buckling, whereupon I crashed immediately. I felt that I was now going to die and that my life would be finished. This then went through my head like a bolt of lightning, and then I continued to slide down the slope. So I tried jumping back onto the grasslands, but this wasn't possible because the tractor was about to fall down the slope. So I jumped downhill into the bushes, and from there I immediately got up, thereby standing up and trying to run away or move away from the slope. But this didn't work either, because just at this very moment, the tractor was barreling down the slope, hitting me and dragging me along down into the thorny bushes. And I felt like I was being smashed with a big hammer. So I was lying there in the slope area, thinking to myself, if you do not do anything now, you are a dead man. Then it will all be over. At the very last second, I pulled out my mobile phone and was still able to press a button, meaning I was able to dial a number. And immediately there was the reply of my brother, who was at that moment in the horse stables about to feed the horses. And so I could still give him a short message before passing out and losing consciousness. And this was probably the cause for the experience in the spirit world. What happened to you during this near-death experience? When I lost consciousness, so to speak, I suddenly saw a great light just when leaving my body. So I was outside of my body and thereafter entered into a kind of gigantic light, a radiant light. Then I felt accompanied by extraterrestrial beings. We passed through the light, and I was accompanied by some kind of angelic beings until we reached a different dimension, thereby entering into another strange world. First, all this was very confusing, but afterwards, let me say, I was no longer inside my body, thus having no weight, but I was still able to speak as I do now, but I was outside of my body. It felt to me as if there would still be some perceptions, such as being as light as a balloon, for example. So first of all, I asked myself, where am I? What has happened to me? Then I realized for the first time, you are dead. You no longer live. Now you are in quite a different world. Then I knew I have died. Now I was at a quite different place. I just have to find out exactly where I am. People are always talking about the heavens and so on. Maybe now I have understood this. When arriving there, I perceived different things, such as shapes similar to figures without weight, and which cannot necessarily be classified as human beings. But everything was of such a lightness and presented itself as if floating, partly indistinctly, that is, not very clearly, as if one would open a curtain in order to be able to see more. All the time I wondered where I was. This can't be true, this is impossible, and so on. Where am I, actually? all this was almost impossible for me. But in fact, it was reality. Indeed, I was there, and it was so fascinating for me. So I thought, this can't be true. But nevertheless, everything was real, meaning that I found myself in a different world. Then I continued to perceive different things, always asking myself where I actually was, until suddenly something was heading toward me from above. And I asked myself, what's that? There was some kind of supernatural powers, comparable to an energy field representing good experiences, similar to some formidable powers emanating from a cloud, only carrying the good, whereas things being no good had vanished. And these powers spoke to me from on high, and everything was sparkling with an inner light, and was even enveloped in a golden color, and all this appeared so very powerful. These powers spoke to me, asking me if I still had something to do on earth. At that moment, it came to my mind, what's that? Well, this is strange, these powers, and who is really speaking to me here? So I answered immediately, well, I still have something to do on earth, and I also explained what it was. Thereafter, I was commissioned to come back to these spheres, but not before having fulfilled some tasks on earth. I, on the one hand, was happy to have gotten one more chance, although I was very close to the borders of heaven, where I almost would have liked to stay. And so it came to my mind, just a few more steps into the spirit world, and I would no longer have wanted to return to earth. However, there was a turning point, a kind of desire, where you are still accepting the conventional patterns, saying, well, I would like to return to earth, and that is why I have the mission to bear witness to my experience, to my fellow men on earth, in my own words, with my own hands, and with pictures, which I would paint. But I immediately countered, I'm not at all able to do this. I can't do that. Such a thing is impossible for me. In my own words, with my own hands, and with my paintings, I do not have any paintings at all. I can't paint. But then I was given the information that I would receive adequate support in terms of fulfilling these tasks. Again, I was entrusted with giving witness to the world through these paintings, and that I would exhibit these paintings all over the world for people to see them. And I would give witness with my own hands, in my own words, and by means of these paintings, where these testimonies came from. For me, all this was so impossible and almost sacrosanct, an unattainable goal, this mission. But I accepted it, promising to give my best to fulfill this mission. But also I emphasized that I don't have these skills. Then again, I was promised to be helped in order to be able to fulfill these tasks. And it was made clear to me that all this would happen, the exhibition of the paintings and so on. And when I left these powers, I was wondering what kind of strange things might still happen. Just a little pause here. In any case, I started on my way back. At the same time, when these appearances drew me back, I then perceived different things, but it was rather in a veiled way. Rather, it was a kind of foggy vision, as if I would look across 5 mountains or the like, or as if I were looking over the horizon or something like that. I also discovered many good things, but also corners of darkness, I mean bad things, from where I preferred to move away in the opposite direction. And then I arrived at the point where I came back into my body, thereby passing through the light yet being accompanied by the light, back into my own body. I slipped into my body, so to speak, and then I was back in my body. There was a power flowing through it, a vital lymph, which I received as a gift for my body, lying there, which I could clearly feel. This was the current of life, and also the power coming from beyond. Being back in my body was very different now from what it was before, because now my body felt like a charged battery, charged with the powers of light from the beyond. And so when I was lying there, I suddenly heard some noises, voices, and I realized that these were familiar voices. Then I knew, now I am back again in the world of matter. Now I am back on Earth. Since I was still lying unconscious on the accident site, I couldn't join the conversation. But thanks to the help of the emergency doctor, the people around me, and the fire brigade at the accident site, I was able to come back. And so I saw and realized, now I'm back in the world, where I was before the accident, but with a great mission from the beyond. This mission was indeed serious and authentic. It was fact, and now I'm standing here until the present day, and for me all this was very real, which it still is today. As if I now would be sitting anywhere watching television, for example. Although unfathomable in our world, all this was so real. I really do have to say, well, this is how I have taken up the challenge. Thereafter, having received the necessary medical treatment, still on the accident site, was flown by helicopter to the University Hospital in Freiburg, as I was told afterwards. Later, I was brought from the University Hospital in Freiburg to the rehab hospital in Krozingen for further treatment of my broken bone. And during this time, I had the whole experience within me. But it was not negative. Rather, it had a positive impact on me because I came back into my life and because everything I was told has occurred. And also because of the fact that before this prophecy occurred, I first had to come back into my life, which was a positive for me. The negative aspect was the pain I suffered afterwards. That's true, but the positive aspect was that I came back into my life. First, however, I had to stay in hospital, remembering the mission I was asked to fulfill, while having reservations about my ability to do so. And furthermore, I kept telling myself, you can't do this, and you can't do all that you're expected to do in the world. Then one day I told my brother about what I experienced and about what I was told to do in the world. I emphasized that everything I was told is real and that all the things I saw had been presented to me, not half-heartedly, but in a very real sense and very substantially, comparable, may I say, to the kick of a horse, branding a horse, or a horse being shod. Well, I still was in the rehab hospital, asking myself always and again, how can I ever accomplish these goals? How can I comply with these instructions? I understood that the deal was that I would come back into my life. How can I proceed in order to avoid, well, finally, I didn't know if I would have to pay for my possible failure or in case I refused to do so. Be that as it may, after a longer period of time, when I was recovering and when I already felt better, I went upstairs inside the hospital building because there was a place where painting and pottery and similar pursuits were taking place. So I went upstairs and I said to the therapist, I have to paint. Whereupon the therapist gave me a paintbrush and a canvas to paint on. For 3 days and 3 evenings, I sat in front of this canvas, asking the therapist what I should paint. Her answer was that I had to paint my experience, which was impossible for me until one evening when I felt that it was all different than normal. And this happened late at night. I suddenly felt well and had enough strength to start painting, which in fact I did. So I started to paint a picture. When starting with the first painting, I knew exactly what the promise made by the spirit world, that everything would happen as prophesied, would be fulfilled, and that I would be helped. So I really knew, I see. Now we start. Now something is brewing. And in this way, my first painting was created in the rehab clinic. Then this continued at home, and my wife encouraged me to do something. So first I told her the plain truth and what's the matter with me, the problem I have, that I have to paint pictures and that I don't have these skills. I didn't know how to deal either with colors, nor with a paintbrush, including all the other painting accessories. I did not know the first thing about this. So she suggested I go to a paint store and to consult someone there to find out exactly what I needed. Then buy it, bring it home, and then that's exactly what I did. I bought them in a specialist shop. I bought a huge shopping cart full of painting accessories, canvases, artist colors, even though I did not proceed quite intentionally in doing so. Then I stored everything at home in my office. On one side, thinking to myself, well, let's wait to see what will happen. And one night, I got up and went upstairs to my office. I didn't even have an easel, nor did I even know what an easel is. So I laid out the painting accessories on an office desk, fixing them by means of some books. And then I started to do something, not knowing what would happen and not being able to figure out exactly what I would paint. But I definitely did something. But there were also other powers around, from the beyond, from the spirit world, where I got the promise to be helped. And I felt these powers behind me. And though it is true that they did something for me, but I did not know what they had done, how and where they had done it. This has come from another sphere. I worked until the morning, then I covered the painting with a cloth and went back to bed, relaxing a little bit. And the following morning I got up, ran upstairs into my office in order to see what had happened there. The picture was not completely painted. Of course, I had a look at the picture, but neither was there an intuitive way for me to capture everything on it, nor was I able to perceive the picture correctly. So I again covered up the picture, thinking to myself, eventually it will all come together. And it went on for a couple of days. At night, I went again upstairs into my office, unveiling the painting and taking the artist's colors and other accessories, as well as some important things of my life, which I had prepared before. Then I started to paint, and later I again went to bed, and the next morning I went upstairs once again in order to see what I had painted. Then I knew, aha, well, now I know what the painting wants to represent. Then I knew exactly that the painting represented the powers from the spirit world from which I received the promise to be helped, and which has helped me to paint this picture. And just working with my own hands, however, this would never have been possible. In this way, more pictures have been brought forth in the night hours when I went upstairs into my office, thereby letting myself go and just seeing what would happen. I put up my easel, placed the canvas on the easel. The artist's colors, I've always put them on a small trolley just beside me, which I always have with me. And meanwhile, I also had beside me some things of my life. And in this manner also, the next painting was created. All this was so fascinating for me. Also, when somewhat later I felt these powers emanating from the paintings, which I could clearly feel. Every time when viewing the pictures, meaning one of my pictures created by my own hands, I wondered the following morning how I managed to bring out the picture's message and its radiance. This was so fascinating for me, but now I knew exactly that I was helped to do so by the spirit world, by the powers always being with me, as if someone were sitting behind me, guiding my hand, quite gently, slowly, like this. Just like the picture had been brought forth, and then I knew that it's going to go on forever. In this manner, several paintings were created, and sometimes I was painting at intervals of weeks. Sometimes there were only a few days in between, but always in cooperation with the powers from beyond, which were approaching me and simply are always accompanying me while painting the pictures, always guiding my hands. Otherwise, I would never have been able to do this on my own initiative. Every time when I have a complete painting, I know that the painting is finished indeed, and that there is nothing more to be added. Then I sit there for days and cannot but view the picture in the evenings, always asking myself, how did I do this? How did I manage this? How has this painting been created? And always and again, my conclusion is that this appears to be because and due to the powers accompanying me and guiding my hand in order to accomplish this task. Therefore, I am, time and again, a great admirer of these paintings, which have been created with my own hands. I cannot but view, time and again, recently completed works, and every time I do this, I discover new elements in these pictures, thereby understanding that the painting captures the mood in the spirit world. All that has been prophesied to me has occurred. The assistance to be afforded me from the spirit world, thereby creating this kind. How long did the healing process take after this serious accident? Well, I was on sick leave for about 1 year, and from time to time I was again in the rehab clinic, and in this way I gradually recovered. And due to specific exercises, I have become more mobile. And after 1 year, I re-entered working life, also by gradual reintegration. Let's get back to this near-death experience. You described some beings who picked you up. Did you recognize some of them? No, not directly, but they were somehow familiar or dear to me. It was as if I think that they were relatives, perhaps my parents, who were already there waiting for me and who had intended to accompany me. I don't know, perhaps in order to find the right direction or something like that. There were also other beings who have also been with us in the light. They were beings of light, a kind of angel that was very pleasant. I'd say their companionship was very pleasant. It was as if you had to go somewhere new and somebody was with you, so that you felt well there. In this case, in the spirit world, this was my feeling. There was no evil, but only good. For me, a really great world, I must say. The only thing which was not good was when I was shown certain things in this spirit world where I thought it's no good ending up at these kind of places, and I don't want to stay there.
Wo ich denke, da möchte ich jetzt nicht gerade landen, so in der Richtung, da möchte ich jetzt
Can this be interpreted as meaning that these places did not look at all inviting? Yes. How shall I put it? Places where souls inside small houses, behind small windows, were waiting for something to happen because they were still missing something, and where you wonder what these beings are doing there and what they are waiting for, so to speak. So you have seen these people inside houses, or maybe also in certain landscapes. You have to think of it like this. It was as if there was fog around the mountains. You see something, or part of something, but behind it seems to be shrouded in the fog, so to speak, like several visual appearances, one after another, which you see when looking across several mountains, every time discovering another part in each section. Did you also see more beautiful places? Yes, there were also more beautiful places. What I mean are powerful places full of light, where many souls are residing as if being on the move, thereby walking further into this place. Yes, I would indeed say wanderers into this place of light, into these good powers. That's the way I felt it. This was, for example, a place into which I would have liked to walk, staying there, meaning into these good powers, golden, yellow, powerful. You can hardly describe the powers of this kind, also pleasant, good, soothing, lovely, and the like. How has this near-death experience changed your life? My life has changed. After having painted a number of pictures, what I mean are pictures created with my own hands and with the help of the spirit world, which I must never forget to add, and also when I was facing the organization of exhibitions in order to show the pictures to people. So I organized the first exhibition in Krozingen, a district I knew very well. So I contacted people in this respect, told them my story, and after some months, I received a commitment. This was how the first exhibition came into being, notwithstanding the fact that thereby I was entering into an entirely new field, because I never had anything to do with artists' exhibitions. Neither am I a great speaker. I was just waiting to see what would happen, because I felt that everything was decreed according to the mission from the spirit world. When preparing the exhibition, I tried to position the paintings in a manner that would help people to understand the meaning of them, because it's certainly very difficult to understand such a thing. Many people have visited the exhibition, among them those who have themselves experienced something like what I did, but for years had never spoken about it. We were also sitting together with the visitors discussing these issues with them, and they welcomed this exhibition on these spiritual topics. I always told them that this exhibition was not initiated by me, but rather destined by the spirit world, and the visitors welcomed the message in a positive manner, that the exhibition had been destined from on high. During all this time, I spoke to many people about the exhibition, about certain paintings, about individual elements of the paintings. The paintings are not only, well, among the numerous visitors, there were also artists who wanted to see what the peasant, that's me, was able to bring forth when being active in painting, so to speak. There were also visitors who were just interested in this kind of exhibition. On this day, with regard to the artists, they found their art reflected in these paintings, and they were simply fascinated about how these paintings had been created and so on, and about how I accomplished all this. And in this context, they have told me about their painting technique. Whereupon I unfortunately had to say that I have no idea about painting techniques and the like. Consequently, I told them my story, how these paintings had been created, and so on. Other visitors, after having looked at these paintings, found many elements in the paintings which they had experienced themselves. And for this reason, they completely understood the meaning of the paintings. The interesting thing for the visitors was, I must say, when I tried to communicate my words to them in connection with the paintings, and when trying to talk a bit about the whole experience, as well as about how the paintings were brought forth and so on. I always told them that I am not a speaker because I am the one who has to tell them more about my experience in conjunction with the paintings by means of my hands and words for humans. This is very difficult for me because I'm just a simple man, but I will give my best in order to fulfill the mission. Since I was given the promise to be helped, I found that I am indeed helped in order to move things forward. And if an exhibition is to be organized, I see what will happen, perhaps from on high, and so I am open to it, and I try to do my best to organize an exhibition, thereby proving able to take an active part in exhibiting the paintings in the order in which my experience has happened, and in trying to explain the paintings in my own words and with my own hands and so forth. Up to now, I can gladly state that everything happened in accordance with what I had to do, has come true to some degree, and I think that it's still something coming up on me in respect thereof, opening up new horizons by virtue of an exhibition, but it will certainly go on somehow very well. I will for sure not go either to an official or the public, nor to a private body desiring an exhibition. I won't do that because I trust that this will somehow be regulated from on high, built on trust and understanding. That's what I was allowed to experience, and so it will certainly go on, because the paintings have a purpose for all people in the world. The paintings are destined to reach the world because they contain human life and history unto death. The message that life continues, bearing the good, but also the darker moments where you should look up, so to speak. In any case, it is a person's history which is of great importance. That's how I have experienced it, and I will give my best go to go on with it. Also, because there were some more happenings when the heavenly powers contacted me, assigning some tasks to me. I have tried to accomplish these tasks to the best of my belief and knowledge, and I have already implemented some of these tasks. I don't contact the spirit world. No, I wouldn't do that. But the spirit world contacts me, not in a negative or in a terrifying way. For me, these contacts are entirely natural now, because now I feel like a contact man between heaven and earth, and I listen and obey when I'm in touch with the spirit world, what gives me power, inner strength, and fortitude. I am given all this when another of those paintings has been brought about. Sometimes I've had connections to people who are frightened when hearing something from heavenly powers, thinking that this is always a reason to be frightened. But this is not the case. You don't have to be afraid of this, because this is for certain also something pleasant to experience. You just have to go with it. As for me, I just have to carry through these wonderful things. And up to now, I have nothing negative to report. Up to now, I only have experienced good things. And that's what I have explained to many people who come up to me or whom I have met during one of the exhibitions. I also have met people who have been sent to me by the spirit world, giving me positive response, thereby contributing a further perspective for good discussions, because this is simply part of the whole, and this is what has happened up to now, and it will for certain go on somehow through exhibitions and later, eventually, by exhibitions around the world. I don't know how, and I don't know when. I'm just a little worker with a horse boarding stable, and I do everything I have to do. I'm working every day, but that does not change the fact that this spiritual connection is very important for me. Well, and that it brings to my life now. Did you ever deal with the topic of near-death experiences before your accident? Before my accident, I had never heard of it. I never thought about it, and my idea was that when having reached the age of 80, one could perhaps start dealing with this issue. If there is something behind how or what, before my accident, I was living in a different world. I have never dealt with things like this, but now I must say, only now I am truly accepted in this spirit world, the real world which also belongs to life, because death belongs to life. You must know that death also belongs to life. So you should live the whole of life, not only working, always being busy, and put yourself under pressure. All that goes with it. But this is one of the problems we and I too have on earth. And now, on the occasion of this accident, I have become conscious of the fact that there is more, something more in life. You should prepare for the life after death, because there is one. There were also many people who approached me about a discussion, thereby coming to understand that it is good to publish all my experiences and to open up for these topics and to say that before I had nothing to do either with near-death experiences or with similar topics or with some of the things which are just a matter of faith. I was completely indifferent toward, let me say, things like that. All religions are okay for me as long as nobody is killed, you understand. But we humans should know that life continues after death and that we humans have a soul, which is very important to know. And this knowledge is of fundamental importance for us. And also that life continues after death. And also that we can already now on earth do a lot for the next world we will be facing, and which can give us so much good. But being aware that there are also things which are not so good, therefore, it is very important that each of us should think about this, because it can all be over too soon. I have experienced for myself that it can all be over too soon, and at this moment you are forced to deal with it, but where it may be too late by then. Mr. Hensley, thank you so very much for this wonderful interview. It has been my pleasure.